a registered sex offender who made a fortune as a hedge fund manager in the 1980s and 90s, known for his lavish lifestyle and high-profile connections. Giuffre Epstein is facing new allegations that he exploited dozens of young girls for sex.
Victims were given cash payments if they could bring other underage girls to be similarly abused. And that's how he continued to expand the number of new victims that he had.
It's the latest in a decades-old saga that's been held up as an example of how powerful, rich men avoid accountability. So, who is Giuffre Epstein? The 66-year-old was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. In his early 20s, he taught physics and math at the Dalton School, an elite Manhattan prep school. Connections he made there got him a job at the investment bank firm Bear Stearns. He then went on to open his own finance firm in 1982. And that's where he amassed his fortune. His firm reportedly only accepted clients worth $1 billion or more. Epstein tried to lead a private life, but his work managing the money of the very wealthy got him into some very high-profile social circles. He became friendly with former President Bill Clinton and current President Donald Trump, also Britain's Prince Andrew. Epstein has 6 residences, including an entire private island in the Caribbean and this $56 million mansion. The 7-story house is one of the largest private residences in Manhattan. These recent charges include allegations he sexually abused underage girls from 2002 to 2005 inside his Manhattan and Palm Beach homes. When he faced similar allegations a decade ago, federal prosecutors in Florida struck a secret plea deal with Epstein. He avoided a possible life sentence in prison and spent 13 months in Palm Beach jail, where he was allowed to leave for work 6 days a week. That 2008 plea deal was negotiated in part by Trump's current labor secretary, Alexander Acosta, who was then the top federal prosecutor in Miami. Now, prosecutors and investigators are seeking to hold Epstein without bail and have appealed for other victims to come forward.
Your bravery might just empower others to speak out about crimes committed against them. It's important to remember there never was, nor will there be, an excuse for this kind of behavior.
Epstein could face up to 45 years in prison.
Giuffre Epstein was a billionaire New York businessman whose vast wealth brought an arrogance that knew no limits. Damn the consequences, he acted as if he could have anything he craved. But what he desired most was sex with young women and girls. For years, he abused them at will. And such were the numbers of victims Epstein exploited, he started trading them around the world. He masterminded a sex trafficking ring which enabled his rich and influential friends and associates to share in his perversion. Remarkably, those accused of complicity in this scandal include His Royal Highness, Prince Andrew. Tonight you'll hear shocking stories from very brave women demanding justice. Among them, Virginia Roberts Giuffre, who stumbled into a dark and insidious world she had no power to escape, until she found sanctuary in Australia. Today, this opulent Manhattan mansion sits empty, abandoned by its owner, the disgraced and now dead Giuffre Epstein.
It's hard. It's really hard being back here.
But Virginia Roberts Giuffre is determined that Epstein's terrible secrets will not be buried with him.
Being a kid, I didn't even really realize what world I was being brought into.
The world within these walls was inconceivable. A horror house of sexual abuse and international sex trafficking.
I was abused by people that I can't even mention here. There's a lot of scars hidden behind those walls. It should be ripped down. It should be burned to the ground. Some of my worst memories are from this place.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes, I do.
Jeffrey Epstein led a privileged life. His extraordinary wealth on show around the world. He had his own fleet of planes, a private island, ranches and mansions in New Mexico, New York and Paris. But in private, Epstein had a dark and insatiable sexual appetite for young girls, an obsession he shared with like-minded wealthy and powerful friends.
The people that were involved with Jeffrey Epstein included some of the richest and most politically powerful people in the world.
Including a member of the British royal family. Standing accused is the Queen's second son, Prince Andrew. Virginia, who now lives in Australia, says she was trafficked to the Duke of York when she was just 17. Prince Andrew denies any wrongdoing, any knowledge of the Epstein sex ring, but Virginia believes he should be punished. Do you think Prince Andrew should go to jail?
Yes, I think Prince Andrew should go to jail. I mean, is he ever going to? Probably not.
Tonight, inside the Epstein scandal, how the powerful protected Jeffrey Epstein.
They had enough evidence to lock him up for decades, and yet they essentially let him go.
And betrayed our most vulnerable.
Do you have any idea of how many victims are out there?
I would say it's in the thousands. I mean, he was literally doing this for over 20 years.
As a young child, Virginia's life was all about horses and climbing trees, more a tomboy than a princess. But then at 7, she was repeatedly sexually abused by a family friend. By 13, she had fallen victim to 2 other pedophiles.
My life just changed and it diminished that light that was in me.
At 16, Virginia was emerging from the darkness, landing a job as a locker room attendant at an exclusive resort in Florida. But what Virginia couldn't know was that in 1999, her past would make her perfect prey for Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's partner and procurer of young girls.
She just seemed very nice, and she said, I've got a person that I know who's actually looking for a traveling masseuse. And if you want, I can get you an interview with him. If he likes you, we can get you educated. You'll be a real masseuse. And you'll get to travel and see the world. And you know, like, she made it sound like it was a dream come true. And it wasn't.
Instead, it was a trap. But trustingly, Virginia told the couple of her past abuse. This was as Ghislaine was teaching her how to massage Epstein here at his Palm Beach Island home.
That was, for them, the key that unlocked the door to knowing how broken I really was.
How quickly did they act on that?
Well, so put it this way, we did the back of him, we did the back of Epstein, and then when he turned over, that's when I was instructed to get undressed and have sex with Jeffrey Epstein while Ghislaine Maxwell was participating as well.
You want to take a moment?
No, I'm okay. I'm okay.
So you were abused by both of them in your very first encounter?
Yeah, both of them. I was abused by Ghislaine and Epstein.
At 14, I was still in middle school. I was straight A student, never even got a B. I played the first chair trumpet. I was the captain of the cheerleading squad. And then after I met Giuffre, I just completely quit.
This is where you were living for a while?
Yes, this is where I was living when I met Jeffrey Epstein.
Courtney Wild was just 14 when she met the 48-year-old Epstein in 2001. At the time, she was living in this trailer park, one of West Palm Beach's poorest communities.
Do you believe that Jeffrey Epstein targeted areas like this?
Yeah, definitely targeted, children like myself that were vulnerable to him and his money, and we felt like we were being helped and saved by him when ultimately he was just preying on us.
Just 12 kilometres away, another world awaited Courtney, the luxurious Palm Beach Island home of Epstein. She was brought here by another 14-year-old to make much-needed cash. What were you expecting to happen? Why did you think you were coming here?
Well, I knew that I was coming here to give a guy a massage and to make $200. I did know that. It was never told to me that I would be molested by this man or anything like that.
Inside, Courtney very quickly discovered the massage was just a cover for something far more sinister.
We were taken upstairs. It was like a circular stairwell that led to a hallway that led to his bedroom, which the massage table was in his bedroom, bathroom. He asked us to get comfortable, to just, take our clothes off, to be in our bra and panties.
Were you abused during that session?
And so we would massage him for about 30 minutes, and then whenever he was ready, rolled over and asked the person that brought me to go downstairs and wait. And once that happened, then that's when the sexual abuse happened, yes.
You're 14 and in a completely alien situation, an incomprehensible position. How did you react?
I just remember afterwards how I felt walking down the stairs, and I just felt so dirty and so, just like a piece of me had been taken. Dirty, I felt, it was like my dirty little secret,
Giuffre Epstein was the master of manipulation, luring poverty-stricken girls in with cash and feeding their dreams of a better life. By the time the sexual abuse began, many were too invested in his promises to get out.
So I have to ask this, why did you go back?
As an adult, I know it's right to run, but as a kid who had been through what I had been through in my life already, I guess the last thought that I had was, well, this is what life's about.
Epstein's desire for sex was insatiable, demanding at least 3 different girls a day to massage him, and in return, be molested. In a perverted pyramid scheme, Epstein would pay extra for his victims to find more girls for him, the younger, the better.
You could tell his addiction wasn't drugs or alcohol, it was definitely young girls. And if I couldn't bring him a girl, when he didn't get his obsession, he just would get so mad.
How many girls do you think you brought to Giuffre Epstein?
I would say at the minimum 50, but anywhere from 50 to 70 girls.
And what were their ages?
The same ages of me, 14, 15, 16. I just hold a lot of guilt and shame for doing those things. And just to know that I had any influence on that happening to somebody else, just, it's just devastating and breaks my heart.
Did Jeff know anybody's real true age, or he didn't care?
I don't think he cared. He told me the younger the better.
These are just some of the girls from Palm Beach who were lured into Epstein's evil web.
He asked me to take my shirt off, so I took my shirt off.
Their young voices retelling a police officer of chillingly similar encounters with the businessman.
He started getting a little excited about it, and he started touching himself.
Despite these girls' testimony in 2005, Giuffre Epstein would go on to abuse and scar countless more young girls. That he got away with it is a disgrace. How he did so is even worse.
Why did this man get to continue roam the streets freely and sexually abuse other young girls when you knew what he was doing? This was no secret.
Coming up,
There were girls as young as 12.
more depravity.
Every place that he goes to, he's already got people lined up and makers making that happen.
Epstein's international sex trafficking ring.
This is a real photo.
And how a British prince, how many times were you trafficked to him?
3 times.
Is implicated in a shameful scandal.
At a minimum, he's a witness. At some point, he's going to have to face the music.
That's next on 60 Minutes. Jeffrey Epstein was a man made of money, worth nearly $1 billion.
Look up to the sky, boy.
But with friends in high places, he was not only wealthy, but extraordinarily influential.
You are going down.
He was a sex trafficker, a sex abuser, and he was virtually untouchable. One of his young victims, Virginia Roberts Giuffre, experienced and witnessed the depravity too many times.
This is New York, this is Palm Beach, this is California, this is Paris, this is London. This is wherever Epstein was touching down. Makers making that happen.
Allegedly, part of the sick Epstein machine was Jean-Luc Brunel, a model agent based in Paris with access to beautiful young girls he was happy to deliver to Epstein.
Girls ranged in all different ages. I mean, there were girls as young as 12.
You have no doubt he was having sex with a 12-year-old.
I was told by him that he was having sex with 3 12-year-olds sent by Jean-Luc Brunel. And Giuffre laughed about it. He laughed. He thought it was funny.
This is not just a story of terrible sexual abuse, but also an extraordinary abuse of power, where the enormous wealth and influence of Jeffrey Epstein would prove to have the ultimate say, where justice was not just ignored, but deliberately denied by the very people who were meant to stop him.
Every single institution in our society that is supposed to protect the vulnerable failed these survivors.
David Boies is one of America's most prominent New York lawyers. He's representing 9 Epstein victims, including Virginia, in their fight to hunt down those who were a part of Epstein's sex trafficking ring. The scope...
It's like turning over a rock and you just see the things crawling. It was bad.
Within 9 months of meeting Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, Virginia was being flown halfway around the world to have sex with Epstein's wealthy associates. A little girl amongst a sea of men.
I was a baby stuck in a world where grown-ups were allowed to do whatever they wanted, and I was lost.
And were you trafficked that night?
Yeah, I was trafficked that night.
And so began Virginia's new life, still on call for Epstein, but also for any friend he chose. Virginia has named the men she was trafficked to in documents lodged with the courts. The name that has caused the greatest splash is Prince Andrew. The pair captured in this now infamous photograph taken in 2001. So as you know, Prince Andrew denies the allegations against him, and he says that this photos are fake, that he was never there, and that he's not his arm, and they're not his fingers.
Those are his fingers. That is Andrew. This photo has been verified as an original, and it's been since given to the FBI, and they've never contested that it's a fake. And I know it's real. And he needs to stop with all of these lame excuses. We're sick of hearing it. This is a real photo.
And that was the first time you met him?
And that's the very first time I met him. And that's right before I was abused by him.
Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell took the 17-year-old Virginia to London to party with Prince Andrew.
Then we went to Club Tramp, and he danced with me, and he sweats a lot, and he smells funny. And then we get in the car, and Ghislaine tells me in the car that I have to do what I do for Giuffre for Prince Andrew. And that's when I learned what was going to happen.
How many times were you trafficked to him?
3 times.
While Prince Andrew denies the allegations, Virginia maintains she's telling the truth. After the encounter in London, she says she had sex with him again at Epstein's New York mansion, where she was seen in his company by this witness, Joanna Sjoberg, another victim. Sjoberg claims Prince Andrew groped her breasts that night. The final time Virginia was trafficked to Prince Andrew was here on Epstein's private island in the Caribbean. Was it just you and him at that time?
No, there were a lot of...
What about your emotions when you learnt, after the first time that it was to happen a second time and then it was to happen a third time? What was your reaction to that?
Disgusted every time. Just absolutely disgusted. There wasn't one time that I was trafficked to any individual that I thought, oh, he's an okay guy. No, I was always disgusted that there were so many people involved in this highly organized sex trafficking operation.
Prince Andrew,
Yes.
denies Virginia's allegations.
Prince Andrew says he was unaware of the sex trafficking, but he spent days in Epstein's New York mansion where the sex trafficking was rampant. You could not spend time there and not know what was going on.
Lawyer David Boys has written to Prince Andrew asking for his side of the story, with no response. But whether it's voluntary or forced, David Boys is certain Prince Andrew will have to answer for his friendship with Epstein.
At some point, he's going to have to face the music. At some point, he's going to have to testify. He can't hide forever.
Are you sure about that? He's a very powerful man from a very powerful family, and it doesn't seem like the UK authorities are at all interested in pursuing him.
No, and if he wants to stay, locked up, in a palace, and not travel outside the UK, maybe he can escape a reckoning. I mean, he can't travel to the United States without being prepared to testify.
Is that the case right now, that he can't come to the United States without...
Well, he can come to the United States, but if he comes to the United States, he could be served with a subpoena.
He could be, but
yes.
Would he be?
I think that's quite likely. I mean, at a minimum, he's a witness. Even if people were not suing him directly, at a minimum, he's an important witness. So I think if he came to the United States now, it is quite likely that he would be served with process.
Coming up,
we were able to amass a whole wealth of evidence. We knew it all.
Jeffrey Epstein exposed.
Is it true, sir, that you have what's been described as an egg-shaped penis?
But power and influence means...
Started with the secret plea deal that Giuffre was offered.
There's no stopping.
The directive to shut it down came from the highest levels from DC.
This moneybags monster.
People need to be held accountable. It's not okay to sexually abuse anybody.
That's next on 60 Minutes.
Why did you keep going back if you didn't want to go back?
I was scared.
Jeffrey Epstein could have been stopped a decade and a half ago.
I didn't know what to do. I was afraid that he was going to harm my family.
His murky massage ruse, enabled by inducement and intimidation, was uncovered when a 14-year-old victim finally told her parents about the abuse.
He made threats, bad things would happen if I told anybody.
For this alone, he could and should have been sent to jail for life. But no one counted on the reach of Epstein's influence.
We had no idea who this person was at the time, anything about him. We advised her that she needed to go to police and to tell her story to police.
Palm Beach lawyer Spencer Cooven was shocked by what police uncovered back in 2005 after raiding Epstein's home. It wasn't just one girl. In the end, they had testimony from 40 victims whose average age ranged from 13 to 16.
We were able to amass a whole wealth of evidence. We knew it all.
Amongst them were damning message pads, clearly showing a trade in young girls, scheduling them for massage appointments.
He has a teacher for you, to teach you how to speak Russian. She is 2 times 8 years old, not blonde. Lessons are free, and you can have your first today if you call.
As well, flight logs showing girls being transported aboard Giuffre's private plane, dubbed the Lolita Express. As compelling as the case was, Epstein fought back, using intimidation as his main weapon.
You had multiple people that were out there really digging up dirt on not only the victims, but also the lawyers, the police, everyone involved.
Have you ever come across something like that before?
Never.
Getting investigators to investigate the investigators?
Everybody, yep.
Did it work? Did he scare people away?
Yeah, it definitely worked, sadly. This is a man that's now dead, and they're still afraid to come forward.
Slap in the face for victims. Instead of admitting to child sex abuse, Epstein agreed to tuition, and in 2008 was sentenced to a mere 18 months in a Florida jail.
They basically turned victims into prostitutes. These were girls with absolutely no history and no past. To brand them that in a plea with him was just, for lack of a better term, disgusting.
He was a pedophile, accusing his victims of being prostitutes. He turned the tables completely.
Absolutely.
This is where Giuffre Epstein served his sentence, but really, he only slept here. If Epstein had been your average sex offender, he would have automatically been denied work release. But instead, being Epstein, he was allowed out 6 and then 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. Driven by chauffeur to his downtown office, where it said he was attended to by 2 young victims he flew in from New York. Back here at the jail, the special treatment extended to being housed in his own private wing, protected by his own private bodyguards. So for Giuffre Epstein, this prison sentence was pretty much business as usual.
Throughout this whole case, there's never been justice, and it started back in 2008 with the secret plea deal that Giuffre was offered by the state of Florida.
Apart from his light prison sentence, no one knew what else Epstein had negotiated in his secret Florida deal. It turned out he'd wrangled full immunity against any other charges for himself and his co-conspirators. The final outrage, victims like Courtney were never to be told of the deal.
How do you feel about that?
To be sexually abused by a man and have the government know, and then actually, co-conspire with the perpetrator to make sure nothing happens to him is just so, it just sounds unreal.
It does, except it is real.
Mm-hmm, except it is real.
And it happened to you plus a whole heap of other women.
Right.
Why do you think the government did that?
Money, power, and I think that there was a lot of people involved in this, this underage minor sex ring that they were running, and I think everybody wanted it to go away.
So you believe that there was a conspiracy at play here?
Oh, absolutely.
What is your view of authorities signing up to that? That they're happy to protect a perpetrator at the cost of the victims. They won't even tell the victims what's going on.
Yeah, it was astonishing at the time, but I know for a fact that the directive to shut it down came from the highest levels from DC.
With Epstein out of jail and with no criminal avenue left to them, victims could only sue for damages.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth?
In pursuing Epstein, attorney Spencer Cooven was intent on rattling the businessman.
Could you please give us your name?
Giuffre Epstein.
Who, until now, had been largely untouchable.
Is it true, sir, that you have what's been described as an egg-shaped penis?
Form, vague, indefinite, and I'm going to give you the first one, Mr. Cooven.
It's a killer first question. What was your second question going to be?
Well, my strategy at the time was that I wanted him to know that as a lawyer on behalf of the victims, I didn't care who he was. I didn't care how rich he was. I didn't care who he knew or how powerful he was.
Was that question based on evidence?
It was. My position was always, how would a 14-year-old girl know what his private parts look like? You know, there is no valid explanation for something like that.
At the time of this humiliation for Epstein, Courtney Wild was demanding some answers too, which led to her uncovering the secret deal between prosecutors and Epstein. Ever since, she's been fighting to have the deal overturned.
Basically, it took 11 years litigating back and forth with the government for them to, finally declare that, yes, my rights were violated and the government was wrong.
Earlier this year, Courtney won her case. Keeping the plea deal from the victims was declared illegal. But the rest of it, where Epstein's co-conspirators are protected in Florida by immunity, stands, something Courtney is now appealing.
Justice needs to be served. People need to be held accountable. It's not okay to sexually abuse anybody. And so for the past 11 years, I've just been fighting to get that message across, that it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter if you have money or not, you don't deserve to be treated that way.
Do you feel like you're being heard?
Yeah.
So why are you crying?
I know. I do finally feel like I'm being heard, and it's a good cry, And I take pride in that, because it's intimidating to go against somebody of such power and wealth. But yeah, I do feel like my voice is being heard.
Coming up.
People who should have known better, just let them continue.
It's going to go home and not do that.
And reunited with friends in high places.
They both think that they can get away with everything.
But the women who suffered...
I expected it from a man, but I didn't expect it from a woman.
...refused to surrender.
We need to find Ghislaine. She has no shame. She has no heart.
She can't hide out forever.
That's next on 60 Minutes. In Florida, an extraordinarily lax and lenient 13 months when he could have faced. With his luxury properties and private planes, he travelled when and where he wanted. And old friend Prince Andrew reconnected with him, despite his sex offender status. What do you think when you see that photo?
I mean, they're just two of a like mind, They both love having sex with young women. They both think that they can get away with everything, that they're above society. And, for a long time, Giuffre was. He proved it, didn't he?
Virginia Roberts Giuffre says she was a victim of both men. Her lawyer, David Boys, says she was also a victim of a system prepared to let Epstein get away with it. The secret sweetheart deal in Florida, proof that these young women counted for nothing.
And that's one of the most disturbing and really shameful things. That people who should have known better, did know better, turned a blind eye and just let him continue.
But Epstein didn't count on the anger of his victims. When they found out about the secret deal, they took further legal action, which in turn led to the federal authorities reopening the case. What Florida didn't have the stomach to do, New York certainly did. And so on July 6th of this year, Jeffrey Epstein was again arrested and charged. But this time he faced the prospect of life behind bars.
I never thought it was going to happen. I honestly thought he was just going to continue to get away with it over and over and over again, just like he proved so many times. So yeah, it was like Christmas in July. Big time.
66-year-old billionaire financier Jeffrey Epstein was in court today
for allegedly engaging in sex trafficking crimes.
How serious are these charges against Epstein, David?
Armed with fresh allegations from new victims, authorities charged Epstein with child sex trafficking and conspiracy to engage in sex trafficking. Raids on his homes in New York and his Caribbean island uncovered hundreds of sexually explicit CDs and photographs, many of underage girls. It looked like the game was up. But Epstein pleaded not guilty and applied for bail, which was denied after the court heard from 2 victims, including Courtney Wild.
The fact that I had an influence on him remaining behind bars was just like so powerful for me, because if anybody knows that man the way I do, there was no way he was just going to stop. He wasn't just going to go home and not do that.
He lived the high life but died in disgrace.
Just a month later, for the final time, Epstein proved he would not be held accountable for his terrible crimes, found dead by suicide in his jail cell. But how he managed that in such a place is a mystery. His shock death raising suspicions he was a man who knew too much.
Do you believe that if he had lived, that the justice system would have been able to hold him?
Yes. No, absolutely. And the reason I think that suicide is plausible is that I think he knew that the jig was up. He was going to jail, and he was going to jail for a very long time.
Today is a day of power and strength.
Epstein's death did not silence his victims, who were invited to share their pain in open court, even though with his death, the criminal case against him had to be dropped.
I won't stop fighting. I will never be silenced until these people are brought to justice.
Their focus now is on prosecuting Epstein's alleged co-conspirators. Ghislaine Maxwell, considered the most prominent and cruel.
I don't mean to sound sexist in any way, shape, or form, but I expected it from a man, but I didn't expect it from a woman. And, yeah, I think that's what hurts the most.
Ghislaine Maxwell was a London socialite and daughter of disgraced media baron Robert Maxwell. On her father's death, she moved to Manhattan to join her boyfriend, Giuffre Epstein, and according to lawyer Sigrid McCauley, soon became his full partner in the sex trafficking ring.
Certainly, I would like to see her being held criminally accountable for what she did. She was an adult. She was an active participant. She facilitated it for years and years. She took money from it.
If she is held accountable, what is she facing?
She would be facing something that would not release her from jail, in my view.
So is it a matter right now that no one knows where Ms. Maxwell is, or is she hiding out somewhere? Or?
Well, she's clearly hiding out. We don't know where she is. Maybe the prosecutors know where she is. But she can't hide out forever.
The other person who has gone to ground is Jean-Luc Brunel, the French model agent who is also accused of sexual abuse and supplying Epstein with underage models who were conveniently housed in and trafficked from this New York apartment block, not far from the mansion.
This apartment block, he just had women on tap. He had girls on tap.
He had girls on tap. Giuffre told me that he has slept with over 1,000 of Jean-Luc Brunel's models/victims.
And you believe that?
I do. We need to find these people, and we need to hold them accountable. We need to find Ghislaine. You know, the world should be looking out for her. She has no shame, she has no heart, she has no conscience. There is no stopping them.
Coming up.
It wasn't until they told me, I want you to have a baby.
Virginia's dramatic escape.
You cannot say no to these people.
To Australia.
I implore the community to please stand next to me, start holding these monsters accountable.
And why death is not the final chapter.
If I were one of those people, I wouldn't sleep well, because it's going to all come out.
In the Epstein saga.
There will be lawsuits against his estate, lawsuits against the enablers, and hopefully criminal prosecutions.
That's next on 60 Minutes.
I promised you carrots. They don't ask questions and they don't judge you. They just want to be loved back.
Virginia Roberts Giuffre has found freedom and shelter in Australia. She lives in far north Queensland, a world away from Jeffrey Epstein and his sex trafficking ring.
I get the way of life, and I prefer it here. I feel safer here. It's been the place that taught me how to live again.
From 16 to 19, Virginia was at the mercy of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, entrapped by psychological chains she could not break until they made this outrageous proposal.
So I spent years with them being manipulated and abused and used, and it wasn't until they told me, I want you to have a baby and we're gonna give you an allowance, but we also need you to sign a piece of paper that says this child does not belong to you. And you know, I wasn't a maternal person back then, but I was like, my womb is not for sale. But you cannot say no to these people. So I said, okay, guys, no problem. But I need to finish off my education like you guys originally promised.
Remarkably, Epstein agreed, paying for Virginia to study massage in Thailand. But as always, there was a catch.
They sent me to a Thai massage school, but not only that, I had to be in Thailand to pick up another victim. I was supposed to bring another victim home.
There, the killer dog.
Instead, Virginia met this man, Robbie.
Looked over my shoulder, butterflies, and she's it, that's the one. Straight off the bat, I just knew. And then I had to work my magic.
His magic worked. After 3 days, he proposed. After 10, they were married. How could you both be so certain of each other after such a short amount of time?
Yeah, that's the magical question. You just know.
Personally, I knew he was the one when he told me, the people that are abusing you, it's not right. And you don't have to live like that. And he was the first person to tell me that. That's when I knew. I knew I'd be with this man forever.
Robbie brought Virginia to Australia, where they're now raising their 3 young children. Their love story stronger than ever, 17 years on.
I just wanted to start my own life off. So I was grateful.
Just to get out.
Just to get out alive and have a happy life.
To get out alive?
Mm-hmm.
What made you fear for your life? What was happening
Just
to
the
you?
abuse alone. It was physical. It was very physical.
She took the leap. She's the one I learned how to trust again. So she's my little warrior.
Well, how would you describe this young woman?
Brave, powerful, a survivor.
Do we yet know how many young women are the survivors of Epstein?
We don't really know. We don't know how many actually survive, dying of drug overdoses and all the other things that happen to vulnerable children who suffer that kind of abuse. It's tragic for the survivors, but it is even more tragic for those who don't survive.
Virginia's lawyer, David Boys, says amongst the well-heeled and well-connected here in New York, nerves should be running high.
If I were one of those people, I wouldn't sleep well because it's going to all come out. And you don't know when. And you don't know how. But you've got to worry that somebody's going to talk.
And certainly there is more legal action to come.
There will be lawsuits against his estate. There will be lawsuits against the enablers. And hopefully there will be criminal prosecutions that will help vindicate them. So I think all of those avenues remain. And we are pursuing those literally as we speak.
Jeffrey Epstein's death is not the end of the story. There are so many others who still need to be held to account. And so many other victims suffering in silence. Virginia has set up a foundation to reach those wounded women and children and to ultimately stop sex trafficking. What is it that drives you today, Virginia? Is it the sadness? Is it the anger?
It's a responsibility in my eyes. I mean, of course, there is sadness, there is anger, there's scars that will never heal, ever. But to me, more than anything, it's a responsibility that I have. And I implore the community to please stand next to me and help me bring down all these bad people. And if you've got somebody in your life that's doing this to you too, speak out, stand up. The times are changing, as they should be. And it's a good time to start holding these monsters accountable.
Hello, I'm Tara Brown. There was little Giuffre Epstein wouldn't do to satisfy his lust for young women and girls. He spent millions masterminding a worldwide sex trafficking operation. A year ago, he was arrested and a month after that, died in custody. Investigators, though, refused to let this scandal go to the grave with him. They shifted their attention to his high-profile friends, among them Prince Andrew, who continues to dodge requests from the FBI for an interview. But now there's been a substantial breakthrough with the arrest of socialite Ghislaine Maxwell, accused of being Epstein's right-hand woman. She's been charged with multiple child sex offences, and for the first time in a long time, the countless victims in this wicked saga are feeling relief instead of terror. Little St James in the Virgin Islands is a picture-perfect playground for the super rich. But it's never been seen like this before. This now abandoned island is the keeper of terrible secrets.
There's something happening here.
A place haunted by what went on here, at the hands of the now dead Giuffre Epstein, a man who knew no limits.
On my own island, I can think the thoughts I want to think. I can do the work I want to do. I'm free to explore as I see fit.
In 2003, as he told a reporter, this island was his world, run by his rules.
I realize what I am. I'm very comfortable in my own skin. What I'm really free to do is I'm free to follow my own personality.
And what a dark personality it was. Driven to sexually abuse countless young girls. His private sanctuary, an isolated prison known as Pedo Island, where he would share the girls like prey with his rich and powerful friends.
We weren't anything important to them at all. We weren't even a human being to them. We were just another toy to be passed around. And that's what they did.
Giuffre Epstein may be dead, but the fight for justice is not.
Today we announced the arrest of one of the villains in this investigation.
Just 4 days ago, Ghislaine Maxwell, the most wanted woman in the world, was found hiding out in New Hampshire.
She ruined so many lives. She belongs in jail. You want to hurt kids? That's where you go.
Epstein's #1 co-conspirator finally arrested after a year on the run.
Helped him exploit girls who were as young as 14 years old.
She's repellent. She's truly evil.
Now, a new criminal investigation on Epstein's Caribbean island exposes the true extent of this predator's shocking behaviour.
What happened on Little St. James, it was so horrifying. The actions were just reprehensible.
And adds pressure on Prince Andrew, still hiding in the palace, refusing to be interviewed by the FBI.
Prince Andrew has simply totally stonewalled.
Of all Epstein's victims, it's the allegations of Virginia Roberts Giuffre that has had the most fallout around the world. Amongst many others, she claims Epstein trafficked her to Prince Andrew 3 times. The first in London when she was 17, then once in New York, and the third and final time here in the Virgin Islands. Prince Andrew, close friends with Ghislaine Maxwell, denies the allegations. The third time that you were trafficked to him, were you alone with him?
No, there were a lot of younger girls with us, and it was very shocking.
How many young women with you?
I believe there were 8.
Prince Andrew met Epstein through Maxwell, a British socialite, daughter of disgraced media baron Robert Maxwell. With Ghislaine Maxwell's arrest, how do you think Prince Andrew is feeling right now?
Oh, Prince Andrew should be panicking at the moment because Ghislaine doesn't really care about anyone else but Ghislaine.
It's all laid bare in her artwork. Maria Farmer is filling her canvas with the Epstein story, the bad and the ugly. For her, a story that started in 1995. It was then, as a gifted student at the New York Academy of Art, she met patrons Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell.
It makes me really sad because the only thing I did wrong was I went to the wrong graduate school. That's the only thing I did wrong.
Giuffre fell in love with Maria's art, bought her first major work and hired her in 1995 to buy art for his New York mansion. During that year, she had a front row seat to what went on behind these closed doors and saw Ghislaine Maxwell in full flight.
She would turn like that, and like as school's getting out, she's like, I've got to get the nubiles. I'm going to get the nubiles.
What did she mean by that, and what did you witness?
So several times, I was in the car with her, and she would ask the driver to stop the car. And she'd dash across to the school or the park or wherever she was going, and she would like write down her phone number for a child, a young girl. And then I'd see that child at the house. And she'd say, they're auditioning. You know, I found a model in the park. And I thought it was really strange because I did see a couple girls in braces, and I've never seen a model with braces.
Of course, it was a ruse. Epstein claimed to help manage Victoria's Secret, and Maxwell was his eager model scout.
He asked me to take my shirt off, so I took my shirt off.
Instead, as Maria unwittingly witnessed, Maxwell was happily procuring girls to feed Epstein's insatiable appetite for sex with teenagers and young women.
He started getting a little excited about it, and he started touching himself.
A compulsion Maria would soon experience firsthand.
Ghislaine came in to get me one evening. Basically, they brought me to the, Ghislaine escorts me to Jeffrey's room, and he's lying there, and he goes, well, here, sit down, you know? And so right next to him, and then Ghislaine sits on the other side, and they began assaulting me. But really, while I was lying there the whole time, I'm thinking, my sister's been around these people. My sister was 16. She's been around them alone.
Maria's fears were well-founded. Her younger sister Annie revealed she too was sexually abused by the pair. Maria went to the FBI. It was 1996, and she was the very first victim to officially report Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell to the authorities. But in a pattern that would be set in the decades ahead, her complaint was ignored.
They just kept it all quiet, put it in the bottom drawer. And they were so dismissive that I just felt daunted and I stopped.
But by going to police, Maria felt the full force of Maxwell's fury. Terrified, Maria went into hiding and gave up her art career. What sort of threats has she made against you?
Originally, it started with things like, I'm gonna burn your art, and then I'm gonna burn your career, and then I'm gonna burn you and the house you live in. And then it was, oh, be careful crossing a street. You know, you can get shot in the back of the head. You know, they were threats against my life. And I told the FBI this.
Do you reflect on how different life would be for so many women today if the FBI had investigated your complaints in 1996?
Yeah. I think about it all the time. I do. And it hurts a lot. And I never had children because of it. Because I didn't feel like they would be safe.
Coming up, threats.
He made no bones about it, that he could inflict harm.
Lies.
She wanted me to believe that she was Jeffrey's girlfriend.
And bargains with prosecutors.
It's a deal like none other that I've ever heard of.
How Epstein and Maxwell...
She's repellent, way worse than I even understood.
...did whatever they pleased.
To get away with it makes me very angry.
That's next on 60 Minutes.
It's your soul you're selling.
In July last year, the slippery Giuffre Epstein was finally arrested and charged with sex trafficking a minor.
Epstein was arrested aboard his private jet.
For years, he'd used his wealth and power to avoid the full brunt of the law.
The charges allege that Epstein sexually abused young girls by enticing them to engage in sex acts for money.
But finally, apprehended in New York, with bail refused and with no other way out, lawyer Brad Edwards believes Epstein killed himself in prison. Despite some speculation, he was murdered.
I think once his bond was revoked, his world just crashed in, and the only control he had left was over his life. So he took it.
Hearing directly from a victim is the only way that anyone's really going to understand.
Brad represents victims and describes Epstein as a genius sociopath, one of his most confounding and dangerous adversaries.
He was charming, charismatic, funny. He made you want to like him. That's why he was able to access over 100 young girls and do the kind of things that he was able to do.
Yeah, you speak about his charisma and charm, but he sort of had a double whammy, didn't he? Because he was always implying threats that he could and would hurt you.
He would make no bones about it, that he could inflict harm. You know, he might say, I'll tell you what, if you keep prosecuting me this way, if you keep doing this, someone is going to get hurt. And so clearly it was a threat. You know, there's no other way to perceive it. But his delivery was as non-threatening as possible.
I think they were in disguise. They were wolves in sheep's clothing.
In the early 90s, the well-connected Christina Oxenberg, a member of the Serbian royal family and a cousin to the British royals, met Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, his alleged madam, now charged with procuring girls for him and sometimes joining in the abuse.
She wanted me to believe that she was Jeffrey's girlfriend, but I knew that she wasn't. But she wanted that to be the storyline.
How did you know she wasn't his girlfriend?
Because she's not 12.
With Epstein's death, Maxwell went on the run. But Christina remembers the time when both Maxwell and Epstein were desperate to be seen.
They were a perfect fit. They needed each other. They were both halves of a whole that they wanted to be. He had the money, she had the connections.
Did you like Giuffre Epstein?
No, not at all. He was just a Goomba from Queens. Call me a snob. But no, he was a typical greedy person who wants more than they already have.
66-year-old billionaire financier Jeffrey Epstein was in court today for allegedly engaging in sex trafficking crimes.
How serious are these charges against Epstein, David?
When Epstein's arrest last year made headlines, Christina was moved to call the FBI. So disturbed was she by what Ghislaine Maxwell had told her in private all those years ago.
She was very cocky, and she told me that she had just got her helicopter pilot's license, and that as a gift, to reward her, Giuffre had bought her a helicopter. And I said, so dangerous. Why would you want to do that? And she said, well, because this way we have total control on privacy of who's with us.
And Maxwell let her in on another secret, this time about the infamous Lolita Express, their private plane used to transport young girls and high-profile friends, including Bill Clinton.
She also told me in that meeting that the private plane that she and Giuffre used, was wired for audio, video.
Christina, at the time, were there any red flags for you? At that point, were you thinking, children are at risk here?
Unfortunately, I did not have even the wherewithal to think of such tremendous evil, frankly. I just thought she was the sort of rancid personality. I had no idea we were dealing with true evil.
Justice has long been denied in this sordid case.
Why did you keep going back if you didn't want to go back?
So scared.
In 2005, an investigation started into Epstein for the sexual abuse of more than 40 young girls in Florida.
I didn't know what to do. I was afraid that he was going to harm my family.
Prosecutors had the evidence and the opportunity to put this sexual predator away for life, for which he'd served just over a year in jail. In return, he was let off all other charges, and incredibly, his co-conspirators, including Ghislaine Maxwell, were given full immunity in Florida, but only for the crimes committed there between 2001 and 2007.
It's a deal like none other than I've ever heard of. Now, the fact that not only was he able to get away with dozens, if not hundreds, of crimes, but also somehow get immunity for his co-conspirators, named and unnamed, is something that even the judges who have reviewed this case have never seen.
With her immunity deal in Florida and a sense the criminal investigation had run cold, Maxwell settled into a luxury hideout, aptly named Tucked Away in New Hampshire. It seems Maxwell didn't count on being chased down for her crimes outside the immunity period. At her remote court hearing on Thursday, where reporters could only listen in thanks to COVID, Maxwell's disbelief could be heard.
A very loud British woman screaming, "Why is this happening? How is this happening? How could this happen?" And just crying her eyes out.
Acting US Attorney Audrey Strauss.
As alleged, starting in 1994 until at least 1997, Maxwell was among Epstein's closest associates and helped him exploit girls who were as young as 14 years old.
Maxwell has been charged with multiple child sex abuse offences relating to the Epstein sex ring, as well as perjury for lying about it under oath. As the world played the Where's Ghislaine guessing game, FBI investigators knew all along, waiting for the right time to strike.
We've been discreetly keeping tabs on Maxwell's whereabouts as we worked this investigation, and more recently we learned she had slithered away to a gorgeous property in New Hampshire, continuing to live a life of privilege while her victims live with the trauma inflicted upon them years ago.
Haunted by that trauma, Virginia Roberts Giuffre was not only abused by Epstein and Maxwell, but also trafficked by them. She alleges to some of the most powerful people in the world. Virginia is now married and lives in Queensland, from where she runs the Victims Refuse Silence Foundation. News of Maxwell's arrest makes this a good day.
This day to me has been like one of the best days of my life. I have not stopped smiling and crying happy tears. And I'm just, I'm elated to know that she's where she belongs. She is the most narcissistic, evil, vain woman I've ever known. And she's finally been knocked off her pedestal.
Coming up,
the actions were just reprehensible.
No escape.
These young girls subject to sexual assault, sexual exploitation.
From an island hell.
Help us victims get some accountability.
The women refusing to give up.
I'm very proud of myself for standing up.
And what now for the Playboy Royal?
The Department of Justice feels Prince Andrew has simply totally stonewalled.
That's next on 60 Minutes. Jeffrey Epstein's paradise getaway in the Virgin Islands may now lie abandoned and desolate, but it holds the secrets of a sex ring even more extensive than first thought.
Once you get on that island, how do you get off?
The Attorney General of the Virgin Islands, Denise George, paints a terrifying picture of what confronted the young women who found themselves trapped here.
It's not like a person who's there and needs help that they can sneak away and run outside and flag down a police car.
did not stop him from sexually abusing young girls. It's alleged he did so until a year before his death, here on the Virgin Islands.
These young girls and women were subject to sexual assault, sexual exploitation through coercion, false imprisonment, where the passports at some points were taken away. And it was quite a number of women, at least up to 2018, that continued.
And that is the jaw-dropping aspect of this, isn't it? So what your investigation is showing is the broad scope of Jeffrey Epstein's nefarious activities, that it just kept going.
Based on the evidence that we found thus far.
And then there's the FBI investigation out of New York, which snared Ghislaine Maxwell. It still has its sights on Prince Andrew. Virginia Roberts Giuffre has long maintained she was trafficked to the prince by Epstein.
She says she met you in 2001. She dined with you. She danced with you. And she went on to have sex with you in a house in Belgravia belonging to Ghislaine Maxwell.
Didn't happen.
Prince Andrew is likely sweating right now. With her arrest, there's speculation Maxwell will reveal all the dark and dirty secrets, naming all the men who were party to them.
In the event that she were to become a cooperator, I think that we can deal with that.
I really hope she comes forward and says A, B, C, D, E was involved. This is how it ran. You know, just help us victims get some accountability.
Last month, the Duke of York's legal team released a statement claiming he was cooperating with the FBI investigation.
The Duke of York has on at least 3 occasions this year offered his assistance as a witness to the Department of Justice.
In turn,
today, Prince Andrew yet again sought to falsely portray himself to the public as eager and willing to cooperate.
The US Department of Justice released its own statement denying Prince Andrew was telling the truth. According to Virginia's lawyer, David Boys, this is an extraordinary step.
It's very significant in terms of the extent to which the Department of Justice feels Prince Andrew has simply totally stonewalled.
What is the end game here in terms of getting Prince Andrew before the Department of Justice?
They want to interview him as a witness, as somebody who was present at the sex trafficking, somebody who was close to Jeffrey Epstein. The second thing that they obviously are going to look at is Prince Andrew as a participant.
Epstein's luxury properties on the island, in Paris, New York, New Mexico, and Florida are where so many girls were abused, where many of them say they were recruited by Ghislaine Maxwell and the other co-conspirators.
Everybody needs to be held accountable that was involved with Jeffrey Epstein and all the crimes they committed.
Courtney Wilde was just 14 when she became trapped in Epstein's abusive web. For the past 12 years, she's been fighting in the courts to make him and all co-conspirators answerable for their crimes.
I feel like I'm fighting against the biggest, baddest people in the world.
But in the long years since Epstein's arrest and death, his victims have just been offered some compassion, now able to seek compensation without the pain of lengthy court cases. Do you have any idea yet of how many women will claim and what sort of figures we're talking about as individual payouts?
My expectation is that it's probably somewhere in the range of 50 to 100. I think you're certainly talking about $1 million or more. The recoveries are going to be quite substantial.
In a move that has shocked and appalled many, Ghislaine Maxwell has also staked a claim on the Epstein estate, demanding it pick up her legal bills.
I'm like, what? She's doing what? I just can't even believe she has the balls to do something like that. She basically conspired with him, and the fact that she would come back for money after he's passed, it's just offensive.
Things would have been very different for Courtney if she had not been hurt like this. Would have been very different for Virginia if she had not been hurt like this. These are very sweet people that have a lot of creativity and they're very smart.
Don't look back now.
As women, Maria Farmer, Courtney Wilde, and Virginia Roberts Giuffre are fighting against the unthinkable crimes done to them as teenagers.
What can stop her?
With Epstein dead and Maxwell potentially facing more than 30 years in jail, that fight now turns against the other co-conspirators who enabled Epstein to inflict his monstrous acts on the most vulnerable.
At the end of the day, I'm very proud of myself for standing up to somebody like him and putting up a fight, regardless of who he was.
Is this the end of the Epstein story?
This is just the beginning. There were so many women in Epstein's orbit that participated, procured, and benefited from Epstein's sickness. Giuffre was dirty. He was sick. He was a pedophile. He's gone. Ghislaine, she is the wicked one. And these women with her, they deserve the same punishment. They deserve to be taken down as well.
So just the beginning.
Just the beginning. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Tara Brown. Thanks for watching. To keep up with the latest from 60 Minutes Australia, make sure you subscribe to our channel. You can also download the 9Now app for full episodes and other exclusive 60 Minutes content.